Jake Bedell, Victor J. Andrew High School, Butler University.
Tyler Jachnicki, Conant High School in Hoffman Estates, Illinois State University.
Adeena, Balthazor, Peatone High School, and I went to Olivet Nazarene University.
Tell me about your broadcasting career and how you got to WAND.
So I first started out when I was at Butler. I kind of got into it my sophomore year. I initially went into sports marketing when I went into school, and after finding out that it wasn't quite the direction that I wanted to go, I decided to kind of shift gears. And after taking a few courses in journalism, people had been telling me that, like, hey, maybe you kind of have a knack for this sort of thing, going and doing things in multimedia. And I decided to listen to them, and from then it just kind of took off from there. I had an internship in Indianapolis with Wish TV there, where I got to go and cover a lot of college basketball, high school hoops and such. Had a little bit of a break due to COVID and such. A lot of stations kind of had hiring freezes where they weren't bringing people into sports departments, but eventually found my way back into broadcast thanks to some nice connections, and been loving it ever since.
Yeah, similar story for me. I started as an accounting major at Illinois State. I took accounting 131 and I said, nope, that's not for me. So then I knew I had a big interest in sports and in writing, so I ended up doing journalism and came to WAD. Started as a producer, made my way up to sports reporter / producer, weekend sports anchor, and then eventually sports director.
I mean, I'm a little different than them. I went into college as a math education major, wanting to be a high school math teacher. About a semester and a half later, I switched to TV video production. During my internship, they helped me kind of get in front of the camera, helped me put together a reel. I ended up in West Virginia for 3.5 years doing news, figured that is not for me. Got into sports, went to North Dakota for a year, and then I came here as a reporter for sports.
What intrigues you the most about being a broadcaster on TV?
So for me, I think the biggest appeal towards it is being able to take stories that are from across like a broader region and find ways that you can tell those stories to people who might not otherwise hear them. Small communities and different necks of the woods across central Illinois have a lot of different athletes, as well as other people who have gone far and wide in various sports, and I think that it's important for other neighborhoods to hear about those sorts of things, whether they're big or small, and for people to tune into our network and be able to hear us tell those stories, I think is important, because it allows the word to spread and people to share common interests. And at the end of the day, I think what people really enjoy at the end of the newscast is when we come on, it's a feel good, it's a number of feel good information and connection to sports, because it's something that everybody loves and can rally behind, and it's a little bit different than your typical newscast, and it's nothing else that you would see throughout the day.
What is the toughest obstacle that you face on the job?
I think the biggest one is just when you move to a new area that you're not familiar with, is just building those relationships for people to feel comfortable enough to reach out, to be like, hey, we have this guy who's doing really well, probably do a cool feature story. Just getting the connections to be able to do the personal stories instead of just the highlights or something like that. But yeah, it's just when you're not familiar with an area, just building those connections for sure.
What makes you three so unique?
I think we all are pretty good at showing off our personalities. When you turn on the news and you see, your everyday anchor doing their little news voice, but no, we embrace our Chicago-like accents and we put it all out there. When you watch a frenzy, we're having fun. I'll never forget the first time we were in this new studio for the first time. We were just having fun. It didn't feel like a job at all. It was just a great time, and I think we do a pretty good job of just really putting ourselves out there on camera instead of just reading off of a teleprompter.
Coming up in sports, staying home, Io DeSumo is back with the Bulls. In the latest edition of Tupper's Take, we take another look at Io's new contract.
I think my favorite part is just the aspect of storytelling, because we have a very great opportunity here where we can kind of get into those smaller communities and tell their stories. I mean, you can go anywhere and see, an interview with a Bears player or a Cubs player or, a Bulls coach, but this is where we can give you the true, local sports and really tell you the stories of Central Illinois.
So recently, Tyler, you took over for Mark Pearson. What has the transition been like for you now as the lead sports anchor and taking over for his job?
Well, those are big shoes to fill, because you're not going to find a harder working person, and just a better person overall than Mark Pearson. Those are really tough shoes to fill. I mean, he taught me everything that I've known here. I've learned way more from him than I did in college or prior education. Everything I know here is due to Mark Pearson and what he taught me. So the best I can do is try to just carry on those little things he taught me and to kind of carry on the legacy that Mark Pearson has created here for WAD Sports.
So behind the scenes, what goes on that people may not realize?
So, but from this time that we start our day up until the very end, and after people have seen the show completed, there's a lot that goes into figuring out how the show is going to look and what stories people are going to want to hear over the course of the day. I mean, before I even come in, I'm scrolling through Twitter or going onto some local sites, checking Facebook from a number of local schools or athletics clubs that we follow, and seeing what they might be up to, and then finding a way to, I guess, consolidate those stories into maybe like 30-second snippets. If we can try and go and talk to somebody, set those interviews up. But the toughest part is finding a way to orchestrate, I guess, in a way, choreograph a dance around the studio to make it look and appeal the best to the audience. What's going to look best in the monitors that we have at our availability here in the studio? What is going to look best on screen? What video shots that we want? Do we want nat sounds in order to kind of put people in the element of what those different events are going to look like and sound like? There's a number of different things that you have at your availability, and it's finding the creative ways to take those video elements or those graphic elements and bring it to the people that are back home that weren't actually there. I think for me, football season is probably my favorite sport to cover, whether it's high school football all the way up through college. I think that there's something really special about football, and especially across this region where people care about it so much. I mean, this is, in the college world, it's Big Ten country, and it doesn't get a whole lot bigger than the Big Ten, especially when you're going up against programs across the Midwest and even all the way out to the East Coast. It has far reach, especially with Illini athletics, but even at home here with high school football, there's schools that have a lot of pride for their teams, whether it's small high schools in small neighborhoods like Tuscola, all the way up to big institutions like Glenwood that are playing up in 5A. I think that there's a lot that those programs have to offer, and just those different environments and how people rally around them is really special.
I'm the same way. Football, it's got to be football. There's nothing better than grabbing that camera and knowing that you've got a frenzy ahead of you and you're filming 2 or 3 football games, because the second you get there, you see those tailgaters. I mean, people here in Central Illinois, they like their football. It doesn't matter what level of football it is. They love their football. So just seeing people grilling out, and then once you get into get onto the field, you see that student section just fired up, ready to go. I mean, there's no atmosphere that I think relates to the atmosphere that football can bring, especially in the Central Illinois area.
I think my favorite is actually basketball. I'm gonna go a little opposite of them. I like more so being indoors, so I don't have to worry about that. But no, I just grew up always loving to watch basketball with my family and stuff. So getting to cover them. I haven't gotten to cover any basketball here in Central Illinois in a while, but I'm looking forward to now getting to go to the Staples Center, cover Illini basketball, and even just kind of watching some of their coverage from last year's high school basketball season. It looks like there's a lot of talent, so I'm excited to get to cover one of the sports that I love to just watch on TV more. So too.
Describe what Friday Frenzy Night is like, the excitement that goes along with it, but also how the preparation and on screen is.
Yeah, frenzy is the magic word here. It is a frenzy. You do not have time to breathe. You do not have time to eat. I will never forget Gordon Voigt, our old sports director, on a frenzy night, came back from shooting games and knew he had to go edit and, get the show ready for the Friday Frenzy. He had just this can of Campbell's chicken noodle soup, opened it up, chugged it. He said, I just need nutrients right now, because that's just how little time we have. Because it's very calculated, though. We set things up beforehand. We have a full plan.
Organized chaos.
Organized chaos is the best way to put it. But the second 6 o'clock, 6:30 rolls around and those high school games are starting up, you got to be ready to go. You got to make sure, we're getting to as many places as possible in a short amount of time, and that we're back in time so that when we go on air, we know what we're doing, and we're putting a nice show together for you. And it's not complete chaos, organized chaos.
Yes.
Friday. The original Friday Frenzy, presented by Pepsi, starts now.
sports after the break. Coming up, the battle of the sexes. The Lucky Horseshoes had a tough task of going up against an Olympic softball medalist. How did they fare? Well, that answer is next.
Stand by.
And they weren't done in the third. Cody Bellinger delivers a belly bomb, putting the Cubbies up 4-1 now, but the Cardinals showing some signs of life in the seventh. Nolan Arenado hits one up Broadway. Cards score a pair. It's 4-3, but in the ninth, the play of the game. Paul Goldschmidt lifts one to right, but Seiya Suzuki snags it. Seiya says see ya to the Cardinals as the Cubbies hold on to win this one 4-3. Finals is Jake Bedell is about to show us this one lived up to the hype.
What's going on, fellas? Well, this gym might be quiet now, but not too long ago, this place was absolutely rocking with Braves and Generals fans, and boy, did the squads that took the floor tonight put on a show for them. MacArthur goes on to win an amazing game, 66-64. Now it's to Tuesday for MacArthur, and they'll actually play the sectional semifinal at home against the winner of this next matchup that you're going to see back in studio between Lincoln and Muhammad Seymour. Reporting from Mattoon High School, I'm Jake Bedell. Back to you guys.
Obviously, I send you video from Effingham County, but how important is it to bring not just this area, but also the attraction from the Effingham County area for the sports and in general?
Yeah, it's extremely crucial that we get those highlights because we want to try to cover our bases as much as we possibly can. And, you know, we're three people. We can't be every single place, but we try our best to do so. So whenever you can give us highlights or lend us a hand in that kind of way, it's huge in making sure that we can give Central Illinois as much, you know, proper coverage.
In the Apollo, Charleston traveling to take on Effingham. Shout out to Rep King Media for the highlights, and the Hearts go to work early. Tanner Pontius buys himself some time, and he's gonna sling it to Andrew Lutz, a 47-yard touchdown. But Brett Spout says anything you can do, I can do better. Right on target to Luke Bonstetter, but Effingham was just too much tonight, Mark. Evan Weymouth dives across the goal line, and Effingham wins big, 31-13.
Conference, Illini commit Caden Fagan and ALH taking on Cumberland. Shout out Rep King Media for the highlights. Pirates strike first. Bryant Weber gonna find Trevin McGee for the touchdown, but the Knights would try to fight back. Look at Mr. Fagan just barreling through people on this run, just saying, get out my way. Break the tackles for a big-time gain. Cumberland, though, would be too much as Weber again finding McGee again for the touchdown. Pirates win a close one, 28-26.
I would say that the most important thing is communication. I mean, in this business, being able to be in touch with people who are, you know, producing the show as well as whoever is going to be setting up the show. In our case, like we all go about setting up our show on our own. So being in constant communication with the other team members is critical because if there's a lack of information or there isn't that constant flow, things kind of get misconstrued or and in sports, you always have to be able to adapt. So if a game goes to overtime, or if extra innings come around, or if a crazy play happens, or you know maybe a storyline going in is not so important by the time the game ends. You have to be able to adapt, and so by having that constant flow of communication, you eliminate any hiccups that you might have along the way, and you're able to put on the best show possible.
Why do you think it's so important to bring the sports to all the great viewers?
Especially in these small towns, I think it's important just because they're not going to get them on ESPN or anything like that. So just localizing and being able to showcase the talent that they have here in these small towns not only brings them joy just to see, you know, themselves on TV, but it also just gets to showcase what, you know, Central Illinois and these small communities have compared to other areas that are getting, you know, the spotlights. We get to localize that and spotlight it here and give them the love that they deserve.
All right, so the favorite / most memorable game that I'd been to was the state semifinal in Class 4A for football, the Leonard Bowl. They had played each other at the start of the season to kick things off, and Rochester didn't exactly hold their own against SHG in that game. Fast forward towards November, it's freezing cold outside. I did a live shot before the game, even before the game started, and all three of the shows leading up to the game. And next thing you know, the Rockets go out to something like a 3-touchdown advantage. I think they were up 20, well, maybe not quite 3 touchdowns, but they're up 27-3, I want to say, going into halftime. SHG crawls their way back. They eventually go on to win the game and go on to seal their fate in the state championship game, and then go on and winning their state championship in Ken Leonard's final season as SHG's head coach. I thought that was just, you know, tremendous. You know, they hug it, the father son, they hug it out at midfield at the end of the game, and it was just, I mean, that was just awesome.
Vehicle that needs to be moved at the green. 42 to 45.
Let's go.
I did not see the victory. I'm proud of you guys. It's tough because the loser of this is not fun. But we're going to go win one for you guys and for us. Well, it feels great. It feels horrible because it's my son over there.
Yeah, it's bittersweet. I love him and he deserves it. He's the best, and I learned from the best, and so I'm really proud of him. And I hope they finish it off for him because he deserves it.
So my most memorable is actually one of the first games I ever shot, especially outside of far away from Decatur, and it was up in Schaumburg, Illinois, and I'm from Schaumburg. And it was the 3A state title game in baseball where Springfield High was playing in the state title game. And I coined them as the comeback kids because that entire postseason, that team was going down 6-0, 7-0, 8-0, and coming back every single game. So I make the drive, 3-hour drive up to Schaumburg, Illinois. And, I'm starting to film the game. All right, they're down 1-0, down 2-0, 3-0, 4-0, 5-0, 6-0. I'm like, Mark, I tell Mark Pearson, it's not looking good. It's not looking good, but you know what? They've done it all year. And they did exactly that. Slowly but surely came back, ended up winning, I believe it was 8-7. And it was just so cool because we were the only station in Central Illinois there. Just going to say that real quick. But no, we were the only station there from Central Illinois, and being able to cover, that was their first state title. And it was just so memorable, not only because, seeing those kids' faces light up, and it was a good, these baseball teams, they're always funny dudes. It was a good group. And they just had a terrific mindset. But also for me personally, I'm from Schaumburg, so being able to film, my most memorable game in my hometown, it doesn't get much better than that.
I think my most memorable game in the short 3 months that I've been here was just his last softball season. Mount Zion was playing Charleston at Milliken, trip to the state title on the line, and I honestly stopped filming because I thought Mount Zion was going to win, which I probably jinxed them. I'm sorry. And Charleston came back in the 7th inning, won in a crazy walk-off style. And it was just one of those, they won it, first trip to state tournament in their program history. So it's always cool to see those kind of historic moments happen. So I would say that's probably my most memorable game.
Favorite gym or fields to shoot in or outside?
So both at the high school level and college level, mine are both basketball based. High school level, Southeast. Doesn't get cooler than that. They got the whole big kind of bowl set up, a little dim gym a little bit. It's a little, the lights aren't completely bright, but it's just a really cool atmosphere to be in. Not only architecturally, but also just with their intros. They have the nice spotlight that they do, and it's just really cool how, the second you step into that gym, you're like, oh, this is a high school basketball game at, the highest level that we can see it. But nothing beats the State Farm Center. Goosebumps. I know he went to the game against Michigan, this double OT game. That's one of those environments where it's almost hard to film because you become part of the environment, and that's always one of the toughest parts about this job, especially when you're covering Big Ten football or basketball. Is you have to do your best to stay focused, to not be part of the environment. That doesn't mean you can't have fun, you can't dance a little bit when they're playing some fun music, watching the Orange Crush, but you got to do your best to not let the environment kind of take over. As we have a job to do, we have to film the best to our ability.
What's it like working with everyone here at WAND?
I think that what's interesting about where we work is there's a constant flow of veterans where you know, might be moving on up to like other markets and stuff like that. And we always wish them the best whenever they're, you know, making those strides in their career, trying to, you know, take that next step. But there's, at the same time, we also get a lot of like fresh faces. I mean, myself, like I only started here only like 10 months or so ago, but very quickly I got acclimated to the people that I'd be working around and what their work style was, what is required, and I guess in order to make the best show possible, whether it's producers, whether it's web people, whether it's, you know, other people on the sports team. And I think that the open environment in the newsroom kind of keeps that constant flow of information and, you know, everything from news to sports, because you need that sort of thing around here, and it helps be able to establish connections and make sure that you tell the story properly. You know, say you overhear somebody in the news department that knows a connection who might have somebody who's has a really interesting story to tell on the sports front. Well, that always comes in hand, especially when you have people like, you know, either Sean Streety or Dawn Sterling who have been here for, you know, a number of years, and they're able to kind of put us in touch with people who, you know, might be able to give us, I guess, some direction when we're looking out for different stories. But it's also helpful to, I guess, talk about where those different things kind of fit into the shows, and establishing good relationships is important.
Funniest moment while on the job?
So we were recording one episode of the Frenzy, and as our viewers will be able to tell you, we always finish off the Friday Frenzy with a nice paper toss off the desk. That's when we have all our scripts. And on one particular show, we had, you have the Friday Frenzy monitor behind us. We had it in the monitor that you can't see off camera. But we cut to that before the end of the show is entirely done, before we had done the paper toss. Now Tyler here, paper toss has to go on. So this man runs over to the side monitor that we have over here, does a Air Jordan leap, throws them into the air, and afterwards we just kind of played it out in slow motion for all the viewers to see, and it was a nice proper send off for the Friday Frenzy.
I have never ran that fast in my entire life. It was a very split-second decision, and it was worth it, because you do not cut off the paper toss.
Reaction time is on point.
See ya!
I think my most memorable moment didn't happen here in the studio, but happened. Me and Jake were coming back from South Bend covering the Illini women's game for March Madness. We were coming back. It was like 11:30 at night.
It was late.
Just crossed over into the Illinois States, or no, we were still in Indiana.
Yep.
Just about to cross over back into Illinois, and the low tire pressure light comes on, and we're like, what the heck? We don't hear anything. A few minutes later, we heard like a thumping noise outside the car. And we're like, what in the world? So we pulls off. Turns out we ended up having a flat tire in Gary, Indiana, which, if you're familiar with the area, not the safest place to go, and especially at 11:30 at night, almost midnight. So we're trying to find a place to pull over. He calls AAA. We're waiting there till like midnight, 12:30. They finally come, put the donut on, and we still have like 5 hours left in the car ride. So it was interesting, I will say. We were coming back as like the morning crew was showing up, so we didn't get back here till like 3 o'clock in the morning. So it was an interesting first trip with Jake.
Yeah.
That was your first week on the job?
Yeah, third day on the job, I think. So yeah, it was interesting.
As far as technical issues, how do you deal with that?
So I remember specifically a moment where I kind of had to bring everything together and try to compose myself the best possible way to where it didn't look like I was in a panicky situation, but try to work through any issues like the best way I could. Was when Tyler and Mark had been out in Iowa covering the Illini's March Madness game this past year. And the tape system that's on the back end where we have all our video footage crashed before I had come up on camera. And so I had to quickly think of like, okay, how can we work through this story and tell about the game without actually seeing the plays? And in that moment, admittedly, I just kind of blacked out. But I went to every detail in my brain that I remember when I was writing the scripts, from the score to who had impact games to what their shooting percentages was when I was reading the box scores, for about 30 to 45 seconds, which in retrospect is not a very long time, but when you're down here in the studio and you're trying to just ad-lib your way through it when things aren't going according to plan, that's an eternity. Now eventually they got the footage rolling once again, and I could regroup and actually show people what the plays were that were able to tell the story of the game. But for, I don't know, maybe about that minute's worth where I had to just kind of ad-lib the statistics and the game flow off the top of my head. It was a bit of a challenge. Professionally, this is my first job in broadcast. So I got hired here in August, so I'm coming up on 11 months or so now soon. So yeah, I haven't been in it too long professionally, but it's always been a passion of mine.
Yeah, same here. I've only really been on camera for almost 3 years, maybe 2 or 3 years, because I started out in 2019 as a producer, and it wasn't until Mark Pearson kind of noticed that I had a interest in sports. He's like, you gotta get in front of that camera. So he eventually got me there. So been in the news, at WAND TV for about almost 4 years now, but a couple of those years were spent working my way up from being a producer to eventually on-air talent.
I'm kind of the old lady, I guess, and I've been doing this for about 5.5 years. I was, like I said, in West Virginia for 3.5, North Dakota for a year, and now I've been here for 4 or 5 months now. So,
What advice would you give young broadcasters wanting to go into the role that you guys are?
I would say the most important thing to be is well-rounded and be well-rounded, be adaptable, and always willing to try new things. Like the position that I'm in, I mentioned that I didn't start out in wanting to get into broadcast. I eventually just found that I had a knack for that sort of thing, and people were coaxing me, saying, "Hey, you're pretty decent at this," and I decided to listen to them. And the way that I've always approached my work is I always try to learn new things, and if there's something comes up that I don't know how to do, I go out of my way to try and find how to do that on my own, or I go to somebody that can help me figure things out. And finding ways to try and push those boundaries, being able to try to be adaptable, flexible to different situations, and find the means in order to connect with different communities, learn all fronts, whether it's editing, whether it's being on camera, whether it's setting up the show on the producing side of things, whether it's writing. There are a number of different elements that you can always improve yourself on. And so never settling for less and always trying to better yourself, I think, is really important.
Who is your biggest role model?
For me, I think that it would be
Jim Kosek.
Jim Kosek. Yeah. For me, I would say I had a professor when I was at college who was always kind of what I just mentioned. He would always push people and other students to try to push the boundaries of their reporting, try to not always settle for the story that's on the surface, but always dig deeper. And I think that he had a tremendous career in journalism. He was more so on the writing side of things, worked with a number of different newspapers and publishers, but he would always try to find the means to dive deeper into his different stories that he was looking at. And so his name was Scott Bridge, and he is former sports director here. Mark Pearson would tell you he was a huge role model in his life as well, and actually somebody who helped get me here in the first place. So kudos to Scott.
No surprise here, but mine is Mark Pearson. He kind of saw something in me that no one else did. If it wasn't for him, I probably would have been a producer for maybe a year, 2 years, and I probably would not be in this business anymore. But because of him, he pushed me, and he saw the ability in me. He saw what I could accomplish if given the proper opportunity. But the best part about Mark is he's also one of the best teachers I've ever known, because I'll never forget, Jake was going to cover MacArthur basketball this year, and he was doing what we call a look live. He was doing a little package where he's doing a big game recap. He had to do it in a big time crunch, and when Jake sent it back and Mark saw how great of a job Jake did, he was celebrating. He was high-fiving me. He's screaming, "Let's go!"
It was one of the first times I had done that sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's one of the most important things about this business is to care as much about your coworkers' work as much as you care about yours, because that's going to be the kind of key aspects of a great teacher and also a great person in this field.
I think mine are just former or current reporters too, like Holly Rowe, Erin Andrews, who kind of have paved the way for the female sportscasters and reporters in the field. If it wasn't for them, there wouldn't be a position for me to come to or look back and see what did they do that got them to where they are. And I hope to kind of be the same for other women in the future who want to get into this industry too, is kind of be hopefully their role model, say, hey, if she can do it, I can do it too, even though it's a mainly male popular career, that females can do the same thing and be successful.
What's it like covering Illini sports but also having Mark Tupper alongside?
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's nothing bigger than covering those Illinois sports, right? And I'd said it before, just the atmosphere that State Farm Center creates, and now even Memorial Stadium. You know, when I first started covering games here, not the biggest turnout. It was they're kind of going through their kind of turnaround as a program that Brett Bielema has helped kind of lead. But even there now, those dogs have come to play. They're barking. But no, there's nothing like those atmospheres over there, and just being able to cover college sports, and that's something. I mean, we all did a little bit, I think, when we were at school. But you know, Illinois is just different. That block eye is just a little bit different. But also being able to talk to Mark Tupper about Illinois sports. I mean, I always call him, he's the human encyclopedia. That man knows everything. I mean, you ask him one question, he's going on for 2 minutes telling you the entire history of Illinois sports dating back to like 1930. So he's a human encyclopedia. He's full of wisdom, and being able to share the desk with him and not only give viewers, you know, something to learn. I learn too every time Mark Tupper stands at the desk.
Welcome in for another Tupper's Take. Adeena Balthazor, Mark Tupper. Mark, I hope you had a good fourth. First off,
Thank you.
but big news out of college football. Pat Fitzgerald from Northwestern suspended today for alleged hazing. What does that mean now for the future of Northwestern football and coaches? What should they be looking out for?
Least likely guy in the Big Ten who would be involved in the hazing thing, and we don't know what his involvement was. What the university is basically saying is he either didn't know about it or should have known about it. Be a little more proactive. If I was Brett Bielema, I'd go to Josh Whitman and say, I want that. If I'm a high school coach in Central Illinois, I'd at least sit my people down and say, hey, we cannot afford to have this happen.
Monday for another Tupper's Take.
The remodeling of the studio in here, what's that transition been like for you?
Yeah, it was like a complete 180, right? Because before sports, we used to stand over there somewhere where we called it the wall, and we just had this little TV monitor that was kind of strapped into the wall, and that was it. We would just stand there the entire time. And now you give us this studio, we got toys to play with now. We can get real creative. And like I said before, I'll never forget that first frenzy that we did down here in the new studio. And we were pumped. Being able to use all these big monitors, being able to get all creative with how we kind of present all these different elements of, you know, a Friday frenzy, but making it as entertaining as possible, and being able to use an entire studio like this at our disposal with cool graphics, cool video monitors. I mean, there was nothing like it. We were high-fiving, we were cheering during the frenzy, ad-libbing as much as we can, and it was just a fun time. And so being able to be in a studio that allows you to show off your personality, that's the key.
What are your goals for the future, 5 to 10 years down the line?
Hopefully still doing this.
Yeah, I would like to be. I think for me personally, I think that as long as I'm able to, I don't really necessarily care quite where I'm at and whether it's like a market. If I'm here in Central Illinois or if I'm in some big city, I still just want to be able to take my storytelling to the next level and be able to, you know, continue to connect to audiences wherever it might be. Whether it's, you know, sports that are, I guess, have minuscule audiences that maybe not necessarily everybody cares about, or, you know, big events that everybody's going to be attending. As long as I'm able to get there, I'm able to find like the different storylines that people are going to be talking about, connected to, you know, viewers back home. That's, you know, that's what I want to be doing, and be able to showcase my personality while doing it.
Yeah, I don't really look at it in terms of, you know, years, whether it's 4, 5, 6. I look at it more so in days. I mean, every day. It's kind of the cliche that our athletes always tell us, but every day just get better. You know, if you work harder and harder every single day and you try to better yourself, whether it's, you know, as a sportscaster or it's as a person in general, just try to be better than you were yesterday. And that's, if you do that, then the great opportunities and any which way, it's going to come to you, because that's the most important thing.
Kind of piggybacking off of them, I hope to still be doing this, hopefully still having fun doing this. That's, I think, the most important thing, is if you're not having fun, why are you doing it? So I hope, you know, keep growing as a reporter and just being able to, you know, continue telling people stories and just having fun along, whether it's with these guys another 10 years or future coworkers, just continuing to have fun and doing something that I love.
Yeah, I think for me, for whenever I think about the opportunities that I've been given since I've been working here, again, this is my first opportunity that I've been given professionally to tell stories in sports and in broadcast. And I think that being able to do that for, you know, people who are welcoming into their living room or their basement, wherever the case might be, has been critical to helping me grow, but also helping me to get an understanding in terms of what the viewers want in their stories. And I'm just so appreciative, because I produce twice a week, and I'm not always necessarily the person that they see on camera, but I might be a voice that you hear in Athlete of the Week or in packages that I'd be turning in the later parts of the week. But for them to be able to tune in and give my story support and not only help me grow as a reporter, but also boost up some locals and others that are going out there and competing in whatever events they might be. It's tremendous, and it means a lot, and I can't thank them enough.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is whenever you go out and cover an event or a sporting event, and you see someone in the area that goes, "Thank you. You guys do a great job." That means a lot to us. It's huge because it makes because we work really hard here.
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid to say it. And it's nice to know that it's not only reaching all these communities, but people are getting a lot out of it. Or like when Jake goes to Athlete of the Week, the best is when he goes there and those teams are pumped up when they know one of their guys is getting the opportunity to be Athlete of the Week. So knowing that what we're doing is not only giving people something that they can't get anywhere else, but also that it's great for them to see themselves on TV, and they love seeing that. And being able to know that what we're doing is making a difference in the community, it really fills your heart.
I think the biggest thing is just from all of us, like a thank you for trusting us to tell your story and putting your trust in us to tell the story correctly, whether it's the Athlete of the Week or highlights, just showcasing the talent. It's just we want to do you guys proud and make you guys want to tune in to watch us. So it's just thanks for trusting us to do that and continue watching us.
Jake Bedell, Tyler Jachnicki, and Adeena Balthazor, your WAND sports reporters. Guys, thanks for your time. Thanks for all you do. We really appreciate it.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, that's all the time we have for you tonight, folks. We're going to see you right back here tomorrow at 6 and 10. Well, good night, Central Illinois. Have a good one.